Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Hi, welcome. Good day, how are you? Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome to another live with Dr. Al, going live with Dr. Nick. Hi, welcome. Good day, how are you? Can you hear me well? Just give me a thumb up if you can. Okay, we will wait for others to join and our guests to join as well. Durud, yes, Durud to you too. It's 10 p.m. here in Canberra, Sydney, Melbourne. They are all the same time. And we are waiting for our guests to join. Thank you, Mina, for telling me that you can hear me well. I'm waiting for my wonderful guest, Dr. Ellie Nick, to join me in a few seconds. Yes, she just joined.
Hello.
Good evening. How are you?
Hi, Dr. Al. I'm great. How are you today?
Good. Couldn't be better. It's a great
Wonderful.
pleasure to have you on board.
Thank you very much for inviting me, accepting my invitation. I'm so happy to be
Very,
here.
very good. Thank you for your time. I know it's a bit, not very late, but for Australians, it's a bit late. They usually sleep at 6, 7 p.m. Yes, so
That's
when,
right.
yeah, if you have a live meeting at 10, it's a bit odd or weird for them. Thank you very much. So everyone can hear both of us well, I believe. And I'm going to turn the comments off, but before we officially kick off the session, I'm going to tell the followers and my friends what we are going to do. As usual, we are going to have a 60-minute or so English session where I'm going to ask Dr. Nick the questions that we have come up with and some of the questions that you have sent me. And then for 10 to 15 minutes, we are going to shift to Farsi. And if some people couldn't grasp the whole idea of what we were talking about, we can briefly translate or just give a gist of what we have mentioned in the session. And if you have had any questions during this time, we will try to answer them. Does that sound good?
Wonderful.
Wonderful. Okay. So I'm going to turn the comments off if that's okay. Okay. So before we start, shall I call you Ellie, Dr.
Ellie.
Nick, or what would you like to
Ellie.
Ellie? Okay, Ellie, first of all, could you give my followers and friends and your followers, many people are joining on both sides, a bit about yourself and your background briefly. And by the way, during our conversation, whenever I ask you some questions, I never ask personal questions, but in case you don't feel like answering any questions, just say I will pass, and I will just go on to the next question, because we have quite a lot of questions and we hope to cover at least most of them. So could you give us a short background about yourself and who are you?
Sure, I'm Ellie, and of course, my parents called me Elham when I was born, and when I came to Australia, I became Ellie. but it hasn't changed much because the meaning is inspiration. And that's what I have been doing all my life. Starting in primary school, I became the teacher's assistant. My parents were teachers, so we're a family of teachers and educators.
So
And I started
it
working when I
runs
was
in your family.
exactly. It runs in our family. And I started teaching like professionally when I was 18. I became an English teacher. Then we had our own institute, my brother and I, in Tabriz. So I'm Azari, that's my background. And I was teaching at university as well as students, and I moved here. I got my PhD here at University of New South Wales, and I have been lecturing, teaching, and I have ventured into coaching in the last 2 years. And I believe it's like a complementary skill. So at heart, I'm an educator and I'm a teacher. And I believe I do my best to follow my name to inspire anyone who crosses my path.
Perfect. Actually, you answered my second question, which is what made you decide to become a teacher? And during our conversation, I mean, both of us are teachers, so we try to highlight some good vocabulary or structure or grammatical grammatical structures which we think might be useful. So this is a very common question in interviews. They ask people, what made you, sometimes they say, what made you become a doctor, or more precisely, what made you decide to become a teacher? So was it just because your parents were teachers, or do you think teaching requires talent, or just it's something that happens accidentally or haphazardly, or what do you think are the characteristics of a good teacher, and what makes a good teacher?
I love that question. So, what inspired me to become a teacher? I believe there was an element of nature as well as nurture, which means in my environment, like teaching and education has always been highly valued. My parents used to tell me, you can lose anything except your education. And as I write in my book, I escaped Iran actually using my education. So that was a bit of a story there. I'm not going into details, but education comes very highly in my values. So I saw my parents teaching and I fell in love with it. And in terms of English, I have an inexplicable connection to English language. Like when I speak in English, I just light up, my energy increases, and I just love the language. Like I love languages in general. In terms of the characteristics of a good teacher, I believe the most important one would be just choose it as a profession of love, because it's not an easy profession. You need to adapt to different styles, different people, and it could be about any profession, but well, I'm biased about teaching and being an educator. So I believe that it's a profession of love, and you need to fall in love with the teaching, and you need to love people and be like a connector, and you need to, keep working on that. And when you get experienced, if you see a teacher, no matter what they're teaching, you can tell whether they're a good teacher or not. So again, I believe there is a mixture of nature and nurture. Like it could be the environment someone was raised up in. So for me, it was the case, definitely.
Good. And that brings me to the next question, which is an important question, I think, and it has been a bit controversial among teachers and students who want to choose teachers. Can anyone become a teacher, do you think, or you need education, or some like scientific background, or if you have a choice between the native speaker of English or someone who has studied in uni for quite some years, or these last years, I think there has been a trend towards people becoming a teacher who just had an IELTS, a high score in IELTS. So do you think just by having a certificate, you can become a good teacher, or you can just you should be able to speak in that language to become a teacher, or you probably need to study in uni towards becoming a real teacher?
That's a very interesting question, actually. Um, well, I think I can give a lecture on that, but I'm just keeping it short. So I believe that in terms of English, becoming an English teacher, definitely you need to know some theoretical background, like about methodologies, about different types of teaching, what is language learning, how do we learn, about different techniques of teaching. And then, of course, there is your aptitude and then your proficiency in the language, like how well you know the language. So the research shows that non-native English teachers can be more empathetic because they have been through the process of learning the language. But I believe if we are looking from particularly cultural perspective, the Iranian, if there is such a thing, I don't like generalizations, but if there is such a thing, we prefer native speakers because, you know, there is this prestige and, oh, I want to be like them. But in terms of research, actually, non-native teachers who have been trained and know the theory and the practice, they can be quite competent teachers. In my book, in my personal view, there needs to be theory, there needs to be the proficiency, and then there needs to be this love that I mentioned. And if these three elements are glued together, I think anyone can be a good teacher. So that's how I see it.
Yeah. On that note, I think, like you, I've managed an English, or I used to manage an English institute back home for some 20 years, and we cannot generalize it. There are some native speakers of English who have become, who turned out to be very good teachers, and on the other hand, there are some people who have studied as high as a master's degree or a PhD, but they are not necessarily very good teachers. And I told you there are some people who are biased, those who whose major was not English education or literature or translation, but they turned out to be very good teachers. And I've had, and still I have some colleagues whose, you know, theoretical background was not English, while they were really, really good teachers. They went through, like, as you said, they studied the theory, they started teaching, they gained the practice, they learned from others by observing. So they had both the theory and the practice. So they became really good teachers. And on the other hand, while I was there and I was training GPs, specialists, dentists, and nurses with that OET exam, I had a few Australian, native Australian speakers who were in Iran. They were married to spouses, either their hubbies, as Australians say husband, they call hubbies, or their wives were in Iran, so they were obliged to come over. So I invited them to come over and you know, take care of some conversation classes or just talk to people. It had some good aspects because, as you said, and that brings me to the next questions probably, because you are an expert in confidence and the fear of speaking. So most Iranian speakers, when they come across a native speaker in IELTS exam or OET exam, or even when they see a native speaker, they panic and they cannot even show the, you know, what they already have gained during their training. So yeah, we cannot generalize it by saying just native teachers, native English speakers are very good teachers, or those who haven't studied it scientifically or you know, academically, they are not good teachers, or, you know, so that's, I totally agree with you on that sense. And then there are some terms, because you call yourself coach, and we have mentor and teacher and trainer. Could you briefly define and do they overlap, or they are like separate entities? So we have teacher, trainer, coach, mentor, and others. So just walk us through
Well,
what.
that's a good question. Well, it depends on the context, in which context we're using that. For example, in the context of what I have done, I am an educator, which means I teach different subjects at university. Plus, I'm a mindset coach. And you mentioned that some speakers, when they are talking to native speakers, they lose that confidence, and it comes from mindset. And that's what actually helped me gravitate towards studying and becoming an internationally certified results coach, because I knew about learning the language, like grammar, vocabulary, all that. The missing element was the mindset. And the people who have good vocabulary, who are great at grammar, and that confidence is missing, it's because of the internal dialogue in their head. Oh, I'm not good enough. I have an accent. What if I make a mistake? So that missing element, which is the mindset, which I have fallen in love with in the last years that I've been teaching that, it's the missing element. So no matter how good the vocabulary repertoire is, the grammatical structure, everything, if that mindset is missing, and the way I teach it, it's a multiplication, and if it's negative, the mindset, the outcome will be negative. So to respond to that question, the terminologies are different. Coach is someone who uses a light. I use this one, is a light, and just shows you the way and gives you the tools that when the internal dialogue comes up, you use the tools to control it and to actually represent yourself with the level of vocabulary and grammar that you have, which is missing for many migrants in my experience.
Thank you very much. And I remember I always used to give this example in the TTC courses, or like when some younger teachers joined our institute. I was like, well, in the past they used to believe that teacher has a kind of truckload of information, or knows a truckload of information, brings this load to the class, throws it out, and the students grab or grasp as much information as they can in their vans or utes or whatever. But as you correctly mentioned, and you brilliantly put it into words, I think nowadays teachers are looked upon as guides, or, as I said, mentors, or someone who shows you the way, the correct path to learn. They cannot teach you everything. They cannot teach you whatever they have gained throughout their life or lives in that sense. So I think they should be so smart based on each individual, because it should be tailored. There's no specific, like, it's not like a one a prescription for all, or they call it the panacea, to just give everyone, say, okay, this is your prescription, just go and learn English. Each person has different capacity, like level of understanding, psychological issues, as you again correctly mentioned, cultural points and nuances. So every individual is different. So that brings me to the very, very important question: what is the best age, do you think, to study English? Because nowadays there are some people who are in their 30s or 40s and they are a bit frustrated, say, isn't it too late to start? They compare it to music, for example, and they say learning a musical instrument, learning how to play a musical instrument, is a bit challenging if you are in your 30s or 40s or 50s. But some say, no, it's never too late. So what is the best age of learning, do you think? A second or a foreign language?
I love that question. And I'm going to give a very cliched answer to that, which is it's never too late. Particularly, I have a big interest in neuroplasticity. I read a lot of the research in neuroplasticity. And according to the neuroplasticity, when this term was actually coined and discovered, that was a big change in anything in the area of learning and education. So it's never too late to learn anything. And there is no best thing, like there is no best teacher, so there is no best age. Of course, when you start early, definitely, you have an advantage. It's a privilege to start early. But even if you're in your 30s or 40s, there is hope. When you plug into the system, I always say the system works. So just plug into the system, get the correct ways of learning, and then you need to get muddy. You need to fall down. Then your knee is gonna have scratches on that. And then again, you need to stand up and move on, because if the action is missing, sometimes I'm sure you have seen this, people come to you and say, oh, how long does it take to be able to speak like you? I'm like, that's a good question. And there is no answer for that. How long are you going to invest every day? Even when you're sad, even when you have been fired, even, you're not in the mood. It doesn't matter. How many times every day, for how long are you going to show up? I have been learning, for example, English.
Immerse yourself.
Pardon
You
me?
should immerse yourself.
Exactly. I have been learning English for more than 27 years, and still up to today that I'm talking to you, every day I practice shadowing technique. So you need to do that. And there is no end to it. There is no, okay, I have learned it, I'm great. No, there is more to learn. So to answer your question, there's no best age. It's never too late. And according to neuroplasticity, anyone can learn anything at any age. Only maybe the speed is different.
Yeah, again, the last point was the key point. I think the younger you start, the sooner or the easier you might learn. And again, I'm sure all of the teachers who are joining us, they are familiar with the term tabula rasa, or a white board. They say that when a child is born, they are born with like a white slate or a white, board, and then you can put as many languages as you want in that board. And that's why people in maybe Canada, they learn English, French, their mother tongue, which could be Farsi or Arabic or another language. And again, some people compare it to music, because your fingers, when you start to play the piano, is more flexible, and your mind is a bit not as engaged as an adult. And I see, unfortunately, some younger, I don't want to say old or young teachers, but some less experienced teachers on the social media these days, they confuse first language acquisition with second language learning, which is totally different. Maybe if we have another session, we will delve into the differences and similarities between first language acquisition and second language learning, which they are totally different. But as I know a bit about you, you mentioned that English is your third language, probably, yeah?
Yes, English is my third language. So first is Azeri, that's my mother tongue. Farsi is second. English is third. And then I know a bit of Turkish and French. I love languages. I have a 5-year-old, and every night we practice languages. We practice now Japanese and Chinese with an application Duolingo. Probably the learners are familiar with that. That's an amazing way, and
So
I
your
just
child
love
will be a polyglot, a real polyglot.
it. My daughter,
Yeah.
yeah,
She's
she speaks currently 3 languages
very nice.
fluently. Yeah.
Cool. So we discussed about the age, about the probably we also talked about teachers and what are the characteristics of a good teacher. My next question is, again, this is I'm going to ask you all the controversial topics, because these are the questions that are directed to me, or people ask, in the sessions that they have with us, or in lives, that what is the most important skill, do you think? Some people, as you just again briefly mentioned, they focus on vocab, and in the past, many people used to memorize tons of words and expressions and different vocabulary books, but they couldn't communicate very well. And on the other hand, there were some people who could just speak, but they didn't have a good command of vocabulary or collocation. So to what extent do you believe in the combination of these skills? Which comes first? What can we say? Like, is it listening? Should we focus first on listening? Again, some people, going back to my question, some people say, well, a child starts hearing from the environment in the first few years. That's why you should mimic the same thing and start listening to many different podcasts and movies and songs and everything, series. But on the other hand, some people might say, no, first you should learn the structure and then put it into practice. What is your own experience? Which should come first, or is there any priority or like hierarchy in the different skills?
I want to contextualize it and answer it in the context of adults who want to migrate or have migrated. And I want to respond in that context. I believe that the best technique, if we want to choose the best technique for improving anyone's English level, of course, I'm just not talking about confidence, just English for now. That's definitely shadowing technique. And the way is like there are different layers of the shadowing, which starts with just listening and repeating. And then that shadowing with listening and repeating turns into speaking. And then that speaking is individualized, which means you put everything aside and now you're speaking. And the way I teach it is I ask them to record it. Then they listen to the recording and give feedback to themselves. They are becoming their own teacher and coach. And interestingly, I do longitudinal studies with them. They keep their recordings, and in 6 months' time, they listen to their first recording, they listen to the one in within 6 months, and they themselves experience the growth. And couple it with techniques of mindset, working on the confidence, it's a game changer. So I believe that there is no one best thing, but in my books, again, shadowing for adult learners who have migrated. And let's agree that having a good command of English, especially the confidence to speak, not just the vocabulary and grammar, some people might have it, but they were not able to present themselves in the way they actually are. Having that is a game changer for a migrant in an English speaking country. So to answer your question, I would say practicing shadowing every day, investing in that, plus working on their mindset to be able to present the exact skills that they're acquiring in the process by putting their time into that. So that will be my answer.
Perfect. And again, those who are teachers in this live, I'm sure they have heard there was a time that the focus was more on accuracy. They were like very, very tough, and the mistakes were not tolerated. And then they lost fluency, so they shifted to the other end, and they started focusing on fluency. And again, going to that extreme, they realized, well, there should be a balance. So again, to confirm what you just pointed out, I think there should be a balance. We cannot sacrifice. Again, I'm sure you have faced these people, those who are just beginners in learning English, and they want to learn it in the quickest time possible. They always say, could you just focus on conversation, and I don't want to study grammar. I'm fed up with grammar, while they are not aware that that is the foundation or base of what they have to communicate upon. So we should not sacrifice, grammar for the sake of like just speaking, or you should not just focus on. Some people, they're listening. They are perfect in listening by just exposing themselves to a lot of different sources and resources, but they cannot communicate. Again, that's not something which is valued. I think there should be a balance among all the skills that you're learning and practicing. But as you said, there are some exercise and practices which bring those kind of underlying talents to the surface, which is much useful to focus on. One of the important questions, again, especially after COVID era, I can call it, there has been a trend towards online courses. So traditionally speaking, teachers like me, we were very biased towards having a face-to-face contact, and that interaction in the class. It was very highly valued, whereas nowadays everyone is shifting towards online courses. Do you think there is any priority or any merits, demerits? Could you elaborate on that a little?
That's an interesting question. I haven't thought about it, but I agree with you that post-COVID, online learning is more acceptable and more widespread. And I really like location freedom, like whenever I'm working. So my personal preference is that all my sessions are on the telephone. I don't even do Zoom. So any sessions I have are on telephone, because when I'm traveling, I can WhatsApp, my students, my clients, and it's easier for them. They don't need to, dress up, do my hair, do things. I do acknowledge that there are advantages to face-to-face classes, being face-to-face with someone, particularly when we are learning English. However, I don't see that coming back on the stage anytime soon, because a lot of people are getting so accustomed to the screen, to their mobile phones and laptops, that even the teacher is just becoming a part of the kind of screens that they're holding. So if it's me talking, I think online classes are amazing. But sometimes I love being in the classroom.
Mm.
I just love,
Sometimes you
the
need to
vibe.
pinch the student for, you're missing that thing.
Just,
Sometimes
yeah,
I
just,
joke, I say, if I were there, I would just, slap, not slap, but, maybe I could just,
yeah,
harass you with a book or something. Yeah.
yeah. So, yeah, sometimes I miss it. Sometimes I miss the classroom vibe. And what is replacing it, I believe, in the common era, in the kind of jobs that we are doing, is doing workshops. So you do online workshops, and then you have also in-person workshops, which is great. I love that experience as well. But I believe that one-off sessions or workshops are not the answer, because this is long-termism. Learning a language is a lifestyle. Learning a language, particularly as an adult, it is forever. It is a long-term project. And to the students who are wondering, how can I learn English in a short way within 3-6 months? The answer is there is no shortcut.
Good. Again, thank you for coming to this point, because that brings me to the next question. But on that positive note, I remember when I was a child, I used to go to Khانum زبان Iran, or they called it Iran America Society, which later was dubbed or changed its name to Iran Language Institute. Their slogan was learning a new language gives you an additional personality. And that was the slogan that they always said, learning a new language gives you an additional personality. So I totally agree with that. But that is a very critical question.
Mm-hmm.
Now, some of my colleagues, for any reason, on social media, they try to sell the moon by telling the audience that you will learn English in less than 6 months, in less than 3 months. So, is there the shortest or the quickest way? Do you really think, if you want to study French or no matter, like German, whatever, but our focus here is English? Is it really possible? They rely on their previous experiences. They show this guy, and they go, well, this is a sample. They were absolute beginners, and they can communicate now in 3 or 6 months, whatever. So, what is the quickest, or is there a quickest way, or what is the length of studying longitudinal or latitudinal?
Interesting question again. I'm loving the questions, by the way. The answer is, it is possible if it's high in someone's values. I want to give you an example. Let's say a person has decided that I am going to America within 6 months, and that's the only option in my life. And I'm going to study English 24/7 with this teacher whom, has a record, at least, like, not, claiming like before, after. I don't mean that. Like some, decent teacher. It is possible to acquire a level of English that, yes, you can go there, you can manage things. Yes. But if anyone claims that, you come to this class 1 hour per week, and then within 6 months, you're going to speak like me, run in the opposite direction. This is my point on that. I could be wrong. So it is possible if it's high in someone's value, they invest in it 24/7, minimum 18 hours. You're studying English, for example, for the next 6 months, you have the right teacher, you have all the techniques. Yes, you can probably become like an intermediate level within 6 months. It is possible. I have seen that. But the claims, most of them, let's say, statistically speaking, 99%, they're only marketing.
Exactly. I think there are some exceptions. Even in teaching English, they tell you that English is the language of exceptions. So there are some rules, but always they say, well, this is an exception to this rule, so we cannot generalize. But as you said, it requires great enthusiasm, outstanding passion, and probably a real target to reach, to be able to do it in a very short time. Other than that, it needs practice in a structured way, not haphazardly, and just learning different things. And there was some cases, I'm going back to direct method, or some very, very old methods of teaching where they had to learn, like there were some soldiers going to other countries, they had to learn the basics. They were using like very strict techniques and memorizing and rote learning, which later they realized that no, it should be a bit more cognitive rather than like going through memorization and practice in that sense. Again, I have some more questions coming to you as an expert in mindset and self-confidence, but first let's deal with the most controversial ones, and then we will shift to that. One of the very important things is sometimes even people know me. Of course, my main area of expertise is medical English, and I have been devoting my whole the last 15 years of my career to medical education, and even my thesis was about corrective feedback in pronunciation. Some people, they write comments or send messages that why do you keep correcting pronunciation errors? And Indians, they have their, even some people, they cannot differentiate between accent and pronunciation. I want you to, as an experienced teacher, to tell us briefly, because again, it's a very broad topic, about accent, because also you mentioned Azeri and Farsi people who have different, they speak different languages, different even accents and dialects. But is accent teachable and learnable? And pronunciation, do you think pronunciation should be perfect, corrected, or no? And then I will come back to some points that I want to add probably.
Sorry. Okay, these are really good, especially the second part is really controversial. Okay. As a teacher, I think the very first rule is communicate what you mean. So this is like a pyramid, like let's say like a Maslow pyramid. So we're starting here, communicate what you mean. And then humans love perfection. We love beauty, okay? We're going up, okay? And when you're going up, you want to be as perfect as possible, like as beautiful as possible, as elegant as possible. And then comes perfect pronunciation. And when you're living in a country with a particular accent, for example, here we have the Australian accent, you want to belong. The sense of belonging is a very important drive for humans. And then once you're going up, it's like, oh, I wish, I want to, have a bit of an Aussie accent, like, good day, mate, just be able to say that. And then you're going up.
Mind you, they just know good day, mate, and then the rest they speak with their own accent. Like me. Some people ask me why I am Dr. Al in Australia. I say, first of all, I don't say I'm Dr. Al from Australia, and I keep my American accent. I don't, if I say good day, mate, and then the rest is American, it's like very, very, odd in that sense.
Yeah. So I believe it goes like that. and particularly for migrants living in a particular geography with a particular accent, I think accent comes last, that you want to have that sense of belonging. In terms of teachability, um, that's a very interesting question. I'm not sure what the research says about this. That's not my area. But I believe that some people are more impressionable, meaning that when you're exposed to certain accents, even when you live in Iran and you go and live in Esfahan, for example, for some time, some people just, get the accent after a while. I believe impressionability is actually, I have seen this in the
Or
research.
they
So
their
the,
accent,
pardon me?
or even they keep their accents. Even you see some people from Isfahan or other cities, Yazd or other like states in Iran, where when they immigrate, they keep their accent both in Farsi and even in English. You can hear that touch of accent, and I mean, it's okay, totally okay. Again, some people misunderstand that when we talk about accent, as you correctly mentioned, like Indians have their own accents, the Chinese have their own accents. But as you said, again, I keep telling this in my programs and in lives, that Iranians are one of the nations who are outstanding in being able to mimic the very, tiny different. I mean, they can be as close to it. We cannot say native, but they can be native-like, really, based on the places of articulation or physiological capabilities. And I keep telling people, I said, yes, it's not good to compare people, Iranians with Indians, because yes, you're right. Indians, they have their own accents, and ironically, Australians, they understand them better than Iranians, but sometimes we speak, they say, what, or sorry, or pardon me, but because they have been exposed to Indians a lot, they can understand them better, I think. But I tell everyone that, look, Indians, they learn English as young as 3 or 4. Well, their nannies speak English to them, for God's sake. It's the second language for them. They have fantastic grammar. They have very few grammatical errors or mistakes, whatever. We don't want to deal with mistake and error in this session, but they have a great writing style. They are fantastic in listening. So it's okay if they speak with a bit of an accent. But Iranians, when we learn English with the terrible system of we are talking about public schools, not institutes. So what we end up speaking English with accent, a lot of pronunciation mistakes. Our grammar is not so good. Writing is not, ideal. That's why I say, okay, let's at least correct the pronunciation mistakes and try to speak a bit with a better accent. And as you said, probably you should be very, very young and very much immersed and exposed in the language to be able to pick up that accent. For an adult and someone who is not making a lot of effort, it's really hard to pick up the accents in any country or any language.
Can I add one thing to that?
Yes, sure. This is your
I
session.
teach a concept called empowering questions. And for the listeners, I want to give you an empowering question. I want you to take it and really write answers, like use paper and pen. The empowering question is, how can I change my accent into an advantage? Literally, write down all the answers that having an accent gives you an advantage in the society, in the job market, anywhere that you are. So that's mindset. That's how you change your disempowering mindset. Oh, I have an accent, to I have an accent. And this is how it can be an advantage. Give me an example. I just give you an example. You become more, interesting for people. For example, when you have an accent, they think, oh, where did they come from? What's the history? Where they grew up? So just by this shift, you can actually help yourself to turn your accent into an advantage.
I remember I was in an interview, and it was towards the end of the interview. The guy was like, Al. They call me Al here, as like you, whose name is like maybe they change a different name to make it easier for them to communicate. And there's a reason beyond choosing this Al name. I will tell maybe in another live, not here. But the guy went, I shouldn't be asking you this, but you have a Canadian accent. Where does it come from? And I was like, yeah, I come from Iran, and in Iran we learn English with American accent. Our textbooks are in American, and we watch American series and movies and songs, and that's why I pick up. And as you said, it was an advantage. Maybe I was different from other candidates, which was good. Again, it's reminded me of that experience. But again, I have to highlight this point that when we correct, or I personally correct the pronunciation mistakes of my colleagues, it's because the expectation is higher from someone who is creating content. And I keep saying that learners, they have to make mistakes. It's an integral part of the learning process. So we don't expect. I have many mistakes in my grammar, in choice of vocabulary, in pronunciation, and everything. So we cannot be perfect. But when we are talking about teachers who are having a large number of audience, we have to be more careful, because that mistake might be spread, and it's hard to stop it when you have a great number of people watching what you're saying, or what content you're offering to them. That's why I think the expectation from even less experienced teacher is lower than more experienced one, or those who are like teaching professional or technical skills, like or they are preparing like their clients for IELTS or TOEFL or PTE or OET, or academic context, probably. We have 15 more minutes. Let's shift a bit towards, of course, you have a very good knowledge about, like, in different parts of education that I'm asking, but let's go a bit towards self-confidence and a mindset. And I want you to take the lead and tell us about how we can improve our self-confidence in speaking. As we talked already, there's some people, they have a bit of, I cannot call it obsession to be perfect, to be able to speak, or they are worried if they speak, they may look stupid, or they may make stupid mistakes. So tell us a bit about self-confidence, how we can improve our self-confidence, how we can overcome that fear or panic of speaking or communicating in general.
Sure. The formula to success in my books is very simple. It has 3 elements: mindset, skills, and action. And it's a multiplication. What do I mean by that? In the context of improving English confidence, we definitely need some skills, as you mentioned previously. We need the vocabulary, the grammar, reading, listening, speaking, all that, the whole package. Second, we need to put in the action. We talked about investing the time, the energy, getting a decent teacher, all that. Usually we know about these 2 elements. And the third element, which is mindset, is usually missing. The mindset is the example of the empowering question I gave. Of course, there's a lot to it. But the kind of thoughts which are marching in my head as soon as I start talking to a native speaker could be, I'm not good enough. What if I make a mistake? Oh, did I say that wrong? Oh, should I correct it? All this. And our mind is just getting the energy, so I forget all the vocabulary, all the grammar. So what is the solution? The solution is I need to work on the questions I ask myself, and I need to work on the stories I tell myself. For example, someone comes to me and says, I'm not good at English. I say, okay, that's a very disempowering statement. It doesn't help you. How can you replace that? For example, I am working on my English. I am improving my English. This little shift, it seems very simple, but practiced during time, it can cataclysmically shift someone's speaking in English, along with I'm working on my skills, I'm investing the time. I said, this is a multiplication. Once that mindset starts to shift, there is this, it's like a lever, and then the lever changes, sides. You see the person is speaking with more confidence. Even the way we present ourselves, the way we sit, like I'm a yogi, the way we sit, when the spine is straight, when my shoulders are down, the way I'm breathing, the way I'm, just having eye contact or not, the person you see right now, Dr. Al, I seem very confident. This has been created. I was a very shy, timid. Everyone said, oh, she doesn't speak. She doesn't say anything. And one day I said, no, I can speak for myself. I can do this. And once I set my mind to something, I do that. So there is a very beautiful sentence. I love it. I am an evidence that it's possible. I keep saying that to my clients. I am an evidence that it's possible. But people need to work on their mindset. In my course, in the very first file, I talk about the moment of responsibility. In every adult's life, there is a moment, I call it the moment of responsibility, that I say, whatever happens in my life, including my English confidence, including the way I present myself to the world, is my responsibility. If I go to the top of the mountain, I have done it. If I fall down, I have done it. And in terms of accent, in terms of pronunciation, in terms of English confidence, everything, once we accept that responsibility, we work on that mindset, we put in the time, we improve the skills, and the multiplication, the result is I become more confident. So in a nutshell, that's how I would answer that question.
Perfect. There are 3 points I want to add. One is you're totally right in that sense. One of the worst sentences that Iranians have learned to use is, I'm sorry, my English is not very good. I mean, this is a sentence which they think will get them rid of the communication, what they are communicating about. But when they say, I'm sorry, my English is not good, that brings their self-confidence to the lowest level, I think. And it's, as you said, it has ripple effect on the other skills as well. And the next thing is, I used to work in, I was a kind of trainer in employment services. There was a company called Matchworks. I was an interview trainer for about 1.5 years, telling the clients how to write resumes, how to prepare for interviews. And one of the important things that you just mentioned is the posture in interviews. We were telling them communication is very, very, very important in an interview session. But it's not just the verbal aspect of what you say. Body language, like your posture, your eye contact, the gestures that you make. Some people, they keep, scratching their, their faces, or they move their fingers or hands or body involuntarily, and more than it should be. And they don't have that eye contact, and the posture, as you said, they are, stooped, or it doesn't show that confidence, and it affects the decision, which is very, very important. So we realize that communication also is important in landing a job, not just talking to someone, which is very important to consider. And as you said, also, again, I want to add that mistakes are inevitable. They are inevitable parts of the learning process. We should make mistakes, and from the mistakes, even in English and also in life, as a life coach, I'm sure you tell everyone that we should fall down, or like just fall on the ground, start from the from scratch, and again stand up. And I again, going back, I wanted to ask you in this question from in the beginning, but I forgot. Why did you choose the name Phoenix? Because Phoenix means it's a legendary or magic bird, which is born from fire. And we have a very good expression. I will tell the audience later. Could you tell us about why you chose this name, and does it have a special connotation?
When I came to Australia, Dr. Al, it was like a rebirth for me. And well, it's a long story, but just to say it in a nutshell, as I've written in my book, I came out of a marriage, I came out of the country, and I came here with only 2 suitcases, and I came through education. And to me, it symbolizes a rebirth. And the person who is talking to the audience here, talking to you here, I have created this person cell by cell with difficulty through going fire. And the phoenix comes from there.
Very good. And we have a very good idiom, rise like a phoenix from the ashes. It means to become successful again after seeming to be desperate or like ruined or devastated, which is very good. I'm really, really grateful and I'm privileged to have you in this live, and we learned a lot during this communication and interaction. I mean, it's very, very, I hope our listeners and those who are following also, I will open the comments in a few minutes and we will see what they have to say. And so we talked about self-confidence. I had 1 or 2 more questions. Yes, you talked about immigration. Some people compare it to loss of a beloved one. Immigration. Some people, they just dream about just leaving the country desperately, but not until you land to a new country do you realize how difficult it is to, settle and to assimilate to a new culture, a new setting, all the problems it brings about. And yeah, we talked about mindset, new country. I had one more question about why do some people thrive after migration or immigration in general, or some people, they lose their own self, do you think?
The short answer is the difference and the strength in their why they immigrated. The research shows that to be able to become a successful migrant, you need to have specific, skills and personalities. And not everyone can do that. Setting aside the research, this I know about. If someone asks me, should I migrate? I ask everyone the same question. Why do you want to do it? If you have a strong why, as Nietzsche says, you will figure out anyhow. But if he says, oh, let's go and see what's happening there, it's going to be very difficult because it is challenging. No matter how your how good your English is, your financial situation, everything, it is going to be difficult. And the less elements you have, finances, English, mindset, I mean, the less you have, the harder it's going to be. So for anyone who is thinking about migrating, listening to this, write down, why do I want to do it? If you don't have a strong why, forget about it.
Good. And again, just to confirm what you just mentioned and acknowledge the different differences and difficulties, I think it seems like a joke, but driving is a serious challenge for us who was driving on the other side for some 20, 30 years, and then now going to a different side of the car, and then it happens frequently that people go to the wrong side of the road. There are some signs here in the streets that said wrong way, go back, because many people they end up going to the wrong lane or the wrong way. Even in escalators, sometimes we subconsciously go to the other side. So, it's the other side. So, and there's a joke I always say, it's like Pink Panther, that we look on the other side of the street and the car goes from the other side. We are overrun by.
That's right. Yeah.
But it is a big challenge. The older you are, the more difficult it is for you to adapt, to a new style of life, and starting from scratch. So it's again, it's like some English teachers. There are some migration attorneys or advisors who sell dreams, and they say, yeah, you should just come over, and this, like, everything is prepared. You can find a job in less than a week, and you can settle. You will make millions of dollars. While
there's a red carpet.
yeah, reality is different. Thank you very, very much. I wish we could just talk more, and I invite you probably to another session, definitely, to have more conversation, because it's really vast, and it's, as they say, these topics are unfathomable. English language. I always say, I'm a learner, and no one can claim that you have gained mastery after some 30 years of teaching. Still, I think I face some words I have never seen. Some expressions that are new to me, especially in Australia. They use some slangs that I should ask, or just Google, see what they really mean. So let's open the comments and see whether we have. Yes, turn on the comments. Hi guys. If you have any questions, just shoot. I'm going to ask Ellie to give us some Farsi explanation about success and self-confidence and things like that as well before we wrap up. خب خیلی خیلی ممنون از وقتی که گذاشتید و در جمع دوستانه ما شرکت کردین. خیلی از نکات خیلی خوبی رو مطرح کردین. اگر یه خلاصه ای از چیزایی که تا حالا گفتیم رو به مخاطبمون بفرمایید ممنون میشم.
بله، من خیلی ممنونم از شما که منو دعوت کردید و با هم صحبت کردیم. به قول شما همیشه من خودم رو همیشه یک دانش آموز و در مسیر یادگیری میدونم و همیشه راجع به سوالهای قدرتمند صحبت کردم. وقتی که یک نفر رو برای اولین بار میرم باهاش صحبت بکنم، همیشه سوال قدرتمندم این هستش که امروز قراره چه چیزی یاد بگیرم و همیشه چیزهای خوب یاد میگیرم. همه آدم ها میتونن معلم ما باشن و خیلی سوالاتون هم خیلی جالب بود و خیلی به قول شما کانتروورشال بود و کانتروورشالش خوبه. کانتروورشال فارسیش واقعا چی میشه؟
مجادله برانگیزم میگن.
آره خیلی جالب بود.
خانم دکتر تو فارسی چی میگین؟
ولی من واقعا یادم میومد، یعنی اصلا بحث کلاس گذاشتن نیستش.
خب من خیلی دوستان لطف داشتن، خیلی ها تشکر کردن، گفتن please share the page of this amazing woman. بله حتما من این لایو رو سیو میکنم و پیج خانم دکترم تگ میکنم. The You Phoenix هستش که حالا من تگ میکنم و در پیج هم من هم ایشون اینو به اشتراک میذاریم که دوستانی که ندیدن بتونن ببینن. سلام کردن. Thanks Phoenix and Dr. Al، قربان شما، ممنون. Such an influential live. خیلی متشکرم از لطفتون. Very informative. Could you explain what references or apps you recommend for improving English؟ اگر شما بفرمایید من تو کامنت های بعدی رو بخونم.
اپلیکیشن برای یادگیری زبان.
اینو خیلی هم از من میپرسن، مثلا آیا پادکست یا مثلا الان اپلیکیشن های زبانی هست توصیه میکنید، فکر میکنید که مناسب؟
دوولینگو خوبه آقای دکتر. من دوولینگو رو الان انگلیسیش هم اومده و حتی ورژن فریش هم هست، ولی خب خواستن دوستان میتونن آپگرید هم بکنن. من خودم زبانهای دیگر رو با دخترم که گفتم 5 سالشه هم فانه، هم لیسنینگ داره، هم اگر آپگرید بکنم باهات صحبت میکنه. به نظرم میتونه خوب باشه، ولی من خودم ترجیح همینه که اگر میخوام واقعا روی زبانم کار بکنم حتما با یک معلمی باشم، کلاسی باشه، حالا چه آنلاین چه حضوری. این در واقع پرفرنس من هستش. ولی خب اگر اپلیکیشن دنبالش میگردید، دوولینگو واقعا خوبه، برای زبانهای مختلف داره، حتی ریاضی و موزیک هم داره.
خیلی ممنون. یکی هم گفته what an amazing accent you have که 100% شما رو گفته، منظورش به من نبوده. Please save this live که گفتیم. این هم اتفاقا سوال خوبی بود، کاش اینو به انگلیسی با هم بحث کرده بودیم، ولی حالا فارسی هم بگیم خیلی از مخاطبین شاید به قول معروف فارسی راحت تر باشن. آیا سلف استادی به نظرتون میشه کاری انجام داد؟ یعنی خیلی ها میگن که من وقت کلاس رفتن ندارم یا هزینه پرداخت به کلاس ندارم. آیا سلف استادی is the way to go، یعنی واقعا میتونن باش موفق بشن یا نه حتما به معلم و راهنما نیاز دارن؟
میتونم سوالتون رو با سوال جواب بدم؟ یه قهرمان المپیک به تنهایی میتونه قهرمان المپیک بشه؟ هیچ وقت نمیتونه بشه. حتما باید این چراغ راهی رو که نشون دادم داشته باشه، کسی که مسیر رو رفته، کسی که چاله چوله ها رو بلده، کسی که میدونه که کجا اون نقطه ضعف و کجا میتونه باشه و به تو واقعا اون راه رو نشون میده و واقعا تو انگلیسی میگیم accelerate میکنه. بله شما سلف استادی بکنی شاید مثلا 5 سال طول بکشه، با یه معلمی که امتحانش رو پس داده و باش کانکت میشه. به نظر من کانکت شدن با معلم هم خیلی مهم است. باش کانکت میشه مثلا 1 سال 2 سال طول بکشه به اون سطحی که میخوای برسی. میشود، اما بهترین راه هست خیر.
بازم دقیقا من برمیگردم به همون نکته‌ای که عرض کردم. به نظرم استثناء هم همیشه هست، چون بعضیا میگن که مثلا ببین فلانی کلاس موسیقی نرفته میتونه مثلا پیانو یا گیتار بزنه، یا مثلا فلانی مثلا خودش بدنسازی انجام داده بدون مثلا ترینر و موفق شده. بله استثناء همیشه هست، ولی به هر حال یه راهنما نیاز داره. یه کلمه‌ای که شما گفتین باز اون ارتباط، من همیشه مثال کمیستری هم میزنم، میگم کمیستری همیشه رابطه زن و شوهر نیست. حتی تو مصاحبه‌های شغلی هم باز اینا میگفتن کارفرما باید اون کمیستری رو احساس کنه که این اپلیکنت میتونه عضو خوبی برای اون تیمش باشه که بتونه اون رو انتخاب کنه. و حالا اینم خیلی جالبه، من خیلی سریع بگم، من چون من شنیده بودم یک دو تا از پزشکا به من گفته بودن که مصاحبه دعوتشون کرده بودن به یک کافه. من فکر کردم که حالا شاید استثنا باشه. من خود منو یه مصاحبه‌ای داشتم اوایلی که اومده بودم و به من گفتن که مثلا مدیر اون منیجر میخواد شما رو توی کافه‌ای ببینه و من یه ذره شاک شدم. بعدا متوجه شدم که میخواد اون منش و اون رفتار رو ببینه، مثلا نحوه کافی خوردن تو. و خیلی جالب، تجربه خیلی جالب بود که من لپتاپمو بردم و مثلا کاری که می‌خواستم خیلی در یه کژوال ستینگ و خیلی جالب بود. اون استرس همیشگی رو نداشت. به نظرم یه مصاحبه، اگه فرصت بشه یه روز راجع به مصاحبه ها اینا برای دوستان یه صحبتایی می‌کنیم. و اینم که پرسیدیم. خب دوستان دیگه یکی دیگه سوال پرسیدن چرا هرچی جملات مهم رو حفظ می‌کنیم وقتی در موقعیت قرار می‌گیریم نمیتونیم به خاطر بیاریم؟
جوابش اینه که دوست عزیز، هر روز آیا توی کلندرت یک وقتی داری که بشینی intentional practice انجام بدی؟ intentional practice چیه؟ یه موضوع به خودت میدی، جلوی آینه میشینی، جلوی دوربین میشینی، صداتو ضبط میکنی، whatever. اینو ضبط میکنی راجع به این موضوعی که صحبت میکنی، نه اینکه حفظ بکنی، واقعا صحبت میکنی، که این در واقع ادامه همون شادوینگ، یک بخشی از پروسه پرکتیس کردن شادوینگ هست.
اگه لطف کنید
صحبت می
من میونین
بفهم.
کلام کنین چون خیلی مهمه و یک دو نفرم سوال پرسیده بودن. اگه میشه شادوینگ هم خیلی خلاصه فارسی، چون بعضیا به حال انگلیسیشون قوی نبود که متوجه
بله،
بشن، اگه ممکنه بگین شادوینگ رو چجوری
شادوینگ این هستش که من دارم سایه اون کسی میشم که اصلا وقتی بهش گوش میکنم میگم کاش من بتونم مثل این حرف بزنم. و وقتی من از چالنج رو درس میدم به بچه‌ها میگم برید اون کسی رو که واقعا لوکاپ میکنید بهش، که میگه واو این چقدر قشنگ صحبت میکنه. چرا؟ چون توی شادوینگ ما شاید یه فایل 5 دقیقه‌ای رو انتخاب بکنیم، شاید 100 بار 200 بار گوش بدی. اگه اون علاقه نباشه، راجع به ولیو صحبت کردیم، اگه اون علاقه نباشه دیگه بورد میشی میذاری کنار. ولی چون میخوای که سایه اون فرد بشی، شبیه اون بشی، 200 بارم باشه گوش میدی. اولین مرحله شادوینگ اینه که من یک بار گوش میدم ببینم مثلا راجع به چی داره صحبت میکنه. توی مرحله دوم یه جمله که گوش میدم نگه میدارم تکرار میکنم، بعد 1 2 3 اینجوری میره تا آخرش و میذارم کنار. هر آنچه که یادم میاد تکرار میکنم. بعد مرحله هست که میتونی با متن گوش بدی و اینا که اونجا وکابولری گرامر میاد و اونجا که میرسه میگه یادم میره، برای خودت تو کلندر باید بذاری. اینا تکنیکای کوچینگه. میذاری که من هر روز مثلا از 12 تا 12 و نیم اینتنشنال پرکتیس دارم. اینتنشنال پرکتیس چیه؟ هر وکابی که یاد گرفتم، گرامری که یاد گرفتم، اصطلاحی که یاد گرفتم، میشینم جلوی آینه یا کامera یا ویدیو whatever که خودتون راحت هستید، ضبط میکنم. این رو ضبط که کردم گوش میدم، ببینم پرونانسیشن کجاست، چی رو میتونم عوض کنم، گرامر چطوره. بعد از خودم میپرسم what went well، چی خوب پیش رفت، what could be improved، چی رو میتونم بهترش بکنم. بعد فردا که intentional practice داری اونو انجام میدی، بهترش میکنی. گفتم 6 ماه اینو انجام بده، رکوردینگ یکی تو با اون آخر 6 ماه مقایسه بکن، خودت ببین که با خودت چند هستی.
خیلی خیلی ممنون. دو تا نکته من اگه اجازه بدین
بله
اضافه کنم.
بله
ما در قدیم، چون ما به هر حال معلمای نسل قدیم‌تر هستیم، همیشه میگفتیم که خیلی مثلا سالهای قبل معلمای ما به ما میگفتن که جلو آینه صحبت کنید. و خب این شاید خیلی مؤثر نبود، چون هرچی بود از دست رفته بود. ولی همونجوری که شما گفتین جدیداً میگن که ریکورد کنید خودتون، حالا چه اودیو ریکورد چه ویدیو ریکورد به نظرم بهتره، چون آدم خودش رو میگم، حالا ما مصاحبه‌های شغلی هم باز اینو میگفتیم خودتون رو ویدیو ریکورد کنید و ببینید آیا آی کانتکت داشتین، آیا زیاد از حد حرکت‌های اضافی انجام دادید یا به چه صورت بوده. بنابراین همونجوری که شما گفتین ریکورد بشه و بعدا نگاه بشه و میتونه اون فازش بررسی بشه که چه پیشرفت‌هایی شده. و یکم که شما واقعا نکته جالبی رو گفتین، بعضی‌ها خیلی از من میگن کاش که من میتونستم مثل شما انگلیسی صحبت کنم. منم میگم منم کاش که میتونستم هادی چوپان باشم. الان مثلا من میگم کاش که من سیکس پک داشتم. اینا که رفتن زحمت ها کشیدن، کار کردن، از غذاشون همونجوری که شما گفتین ممارست پشتش بوده، تلاش کردن، برنامه داشتن، همینجوری دیمی نبوده که کسی به، یا مثلا یکی مثلا من میبینم یکی چقدر قشنگ گیتار میزنه، میگم کاش که من الان جای این بودم. اون زحمت کشیده، از نوت تک تک کار کرده، از نمیدونم موسیقی های آسون و کتاب رفته بالا تا به اجرا رسیده و اجرا رو سم رسیده و به اون سطح. بنابراین کار همیشه نیاز به تلاش و تمرین داره. من همیشه باز مثال میزنم، اینم باز خیلی سریع بگم که زمان ما خیلی امکانات کمتر بود نسبت به الان. مثلا من قشنگ یادم در دانشگاه میگفتن مثلا برین از VOA 5 دقیقه‌ش رو ریکورد کنید، مثلا اونو ترانسکرایب کنید. ما مثلا رادیوم کیفیت‌ها خوب نبود، نمیدونم باید با ویدیو ریکورد، با یه وایس ریکوردر اون رو ریکورد می‌کردیم، بعد نمی‌شنید. الان مثلا همه این متن سخنرانی‌ها هست، فیلم‌ها زیرنویس داره. همونجوری که خانم دکتر گفتن می‌تونیم مثلا، من توصیه میکنم مثلا آهنگ ها رو 1 بار 2 بار 3 بار چند بار بشنوید، بعد مثلا لیریکسش رو نگاه کنید ببینید چی میگه و بعد با اون سعی کنید با اون رید الانگ کنید، بخونید، تلفظاش چک بشه. یعنی خیلی امکانات بیشتره. دیکشنری ها آنلاین هست. الان من خودم هر لحظه الان مثلا میزنم تلفظ من بریتیش امریکن توی جمله کالوکیشنش، همه اینا خیلی به نظرم امکانات بیشتره و
من یه
راحت.
مثال از والنربلیتی خودم بزنم. من اول راهنمایی بودم و چون نمونه دولتی رفته بودم، زبان انگلیسی ما اونجا شروع می شد و من تا اون لحظه حتی ABCD نمیدونستم چیه. یه دختره که اول راهنمایی، تصور بکنید 2 نصف شب کاست زبان رو عقب جلو میکنه که ببینی اصلا چی داره میگه و به فارسی مینویسه که مثلا هلو سندی اند سو. اوکی، اینو چرا میخوام بزنم مثال رو؟ برای اینکه این اومده الان اینجاست، حالا به هر جایی که رسیده و نرسیده، حالا relatively میخوام بگم که I am the evidence that it's possible. اما باید اینوست بکنی، باید کار بکنی روش. اون intentional practice که گذاشتی تو کلندر اومد که بالا، باید بری انجامش بدی. اینو داخل پرانتز گفتم شاید به کسی کمک بکنه، کسی که
خیلی
ABCD
ممنون.
رو هم
سوال دیگه
نمیدونسته
هست که
میتونه.
خیلی طولانیه، مجبورم رو اسکیپ بکنم چون می‌خواستم یه سوال خیلی مهم از شما بپرسم. یکی هم گفتن بسیار عالی بود و این تقدیر و تشکرها باعث افتخار، خیلی لطف کردین همین که وقتتون رو به قول معروف هدر نرفته. و یکی دو نوشتن وجودتان پربرکت که باعث افتخاره. خیلی ممنون. اگه ممکنه به من و به دوستانمون بگین که موفقیت چیه؟ آیا این شانس؟ بعضیا رو آدم میبینه خیلی چون شما میگم حالا بریم به سمت از انگلیش ادویکیشن اینا، چون این خیلی مهمه. شاید هم مثلا من یه جلسه دیگه دوست دارم با شما صحبت کنیم در ارتباط با همین یوگا، مدیتیشن، موفقیت، شانس اینا. ولی راجع به موفقیت اگه میشه، چه کسی رو شما موفق میدونید؟ یا اگه کسی بگی بیاد پیش شما بگی من موفق نیستم، شانس ندارم، آیا there's a chance، مثلا آیا شانسی وجود داره؟ آیا کسی هست که خوب شانسش رو استفاده کنه؟ موفقیت نیاز به تلاش داره؟ اگه اینم بگید، چون خیلی مهم برای منم خودم مهمه که بتونیم موفق تر باشیم.
خیلی کوتاه میخوام جواب بدم. هر کسی، هر ادالتی که به اون مومنت آف ریسپانسیبیلیتی، لحظه مسئولیت پذیریش میرسه، یک سری کانسپت ها رو باید برای خودش تعریف بکنه. زندگی از دیدگاه من یعنی چی؟ خوشحالی و هپینس یعنی چی؟ و موفقیت یعنی چی؟ همه باید تعریف بکنن این رو. برای هر کس متفاوت است و وقتی دارم میرم جلو مقایسه میکنم خودم رو با دیروز خودم، ببینم چقدر به سمت اون موفقیت نزدیک شدم، چقدر به اون هپینس نزدیک شدم، چقدر به زندگی نزدیک شدم. یه مثال میزنم. مثال من این هست که تعریف من از زندگی is a WC. It's a worthwhile challenge. چالشه ولی ارزششو داره.
یه لحظه من
وقتی
WC چرا رفت؟
گفتم یعنی طنز داره توش ولی خب it's a worthwhile challenge. هر کسی برای خودش باید موفقیت رو تعریف بکنه. به نظرم هیچ تعریف یونیورسالی وجود نداره.
خیلی خیلی متشکرم. باعث افتخار بود وقتی که در اختیار ما گذاشتید و مطمئنم که مخاطبین هم پیج من هم پیج شما استفاده کردن. انشالله فرصت‌های بیشتری بشه که با هم بیشتر هم اندیشی کنیم و در این هم اندیشی نکاتی رو بتونیم هر دو نفر از هم یاد بگیریم.
خیلی خوشحال شدم. منم خیلی یاد گرفتم. بازم ممنونم. And until another video, take care and keep shining.
Take care. Bye.